I never imagined the day I'd return home to ruin. It began innocently enough, a tentative reconnection with the brother I hardly knew. In childhood, he was the golden child, effortlessly brilliant, endlessly favored, while I hovered on the edges of my parents' attention. Their love for him was quiet, but absolute. For me, it was conditional and reserved. When I left home at 18, I swore I would never look back. And for years, I didn't. Then, about a year ago, out of the blue, he reached out. "We miss you," he wrote. He and our parents and odd trio, reunited by guilt, perhaps wanted to make amends. I hesitated, finger hovering over the screen. Part of me still burned with old resentment, their dismissive smiles, the way they half listened whenever I spoke. But another part, quieter, hopeful, part wondered whether people could change. Could parents who overlooked you for decades suddenly see you? Could a brother, raised as the favored son, break through his own cloud of entitlement and reach out in genuine regret? Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet. At first, the visits were pleasant. He showed up at my door with coffee and awkward jokes. Our parents phoned sporadically, light and chatty, as if the past had never happened. I introduced him to my wife, Mara, and we all sat around the kitchen table, laughter threading through the air in a way I hadn't felt since childhood. My heart, battered by old wounds, ached with a cautious optimism. Perhaps this was the rebirth of a family. Then the oddities began. He started dropping by unannounced, sometimes while I was at work, sometimes late at night. Mara shrugged these off. "He just misses you, that's all." I tried to believe her, but there was a tension in their smiles, an intimacy I couldn't name. I chalked it up to paranoia after all. I had carried a lifetime of feeling unseen, always anticipating someone else would walk into my life and displace me. Maybe I was simply replaying old fears. 4 months ago, Mara called me at my office. "I'm pregnant," she whispered, her voice trembling. My heart leaped. We'd wanted children for years. A baby would cement our life together, a testament to the love we shared. I rushed home, vision of a nursery already forming in my mind. She clutched my hand, eyes shining. I kissed her Belia, small, perfect beginning. But underlying the joy was a sickening knot in my stomach. Every time I saw her with my brother, a strange electric charge passed between them. He'd brush his hand against her side, lean close when she spoke. They shared jokes she wouldn't share with me. I tried to silence the voice, whispering in my ear, that voice born of years of neglect, reminding me to stay vigilant. I wanted to trust Mara, absolutely, to dissolve my old defenses. But the unease grew. One night, after she'd fallen asleep, I slipped her phone from the nightstand. My breaths were shallow as I scrolled through her messages, affectionate nicknames, late-night rendezvous, veiled invitations. My brother's name stamped across lines, meant to be secret. "I can't wait to see you again," he'd written. "You look beautiful today." Mara's replies were equally tender. "I've missed you so much." My world tilted. I felt pulled apart from the inside, as though every bit of love I'd felt for both Mara and my brother dissolved in a single moment. When dawn broke, I confronted her. At first, she denied. Then, faced with the evidence, she wept and confessed. For months, she'd been seeing him. The baby she carried was his. They'd planned to tell me once the child was born. An unthinkable cruelty. I left that house without a backward glance, dragging my suitcase down the driveway under a gray sky. When I called my parents, voice stiff with pain, I expected outrage after all. Their little golden child had destroyed my marriage. But their response was a perfunctory plea for familial harmony. "He made a mistake, son. It's forgiveness they need. You should be the bigger person." My mother's voice cracked. "Think of the baby." My father's was cool, distant. "Blood is thicker than water." I realized then that nothing had changed. The scales that had weighed in my brother's favor all those years still tipped in his direction. My anger surged, burning away any remaining loyalty. I told them I never wanted to see them again. I filed for divorce. Mara and my brother painted me as the villain, angry, overbearing husband, while my family nodded along. In court, her lawyer argued for alimony, invoking a dire scenario: a mother and child in need, abandoned by a callous ex. My lawyer dismantled their case, revealing the affair, pointing out that the child was not mine. The judge, unimpressed by their theatrics, ruled in my favor. Mara walked away with the house and a modest settlement. I kept my dignity, if hardly anything else. For 2 months, I worked late, built a new routine, filled my apartment with books and houseplants, tried to sleep without the leitmotif of betrayal echoing in my mind. I felt liberated, yet hollow freedom earned through pain. Then, the next blow, a courier arrived with a gift box, unmarked except for our parents' embossed initials. Inside were baby booties, a tiny onesie embroidered grandbaby, and a note in my mother's handwriting. "We hope this helps. Love, Mom and Dad." My hands shook as I read it. They'd bought baby clothes in, maybe before I knew of the pregnancy. They'd been complicit in this from the start. The realization hit me like a freight train. My parents hadn't simply forgiven my brother. They'd enabled him. They'd smoothed the road for his affair, blanketed the evidence in love, and orchestrated it all under the guise of family reconciliation. The gift box wasn't a peace offering. It was an admission of guilt, a token of their role in the betrayal. My chest tightened. If they could plan this, what else had they plotted against me? My mind flicked back to countless childhood slights and favorites. The truth surfaced, stark and cold. They'd never seen me, never loved me as I was. They only saw an accessory to their chosen son's life, a convenient footstool on his path. And now, their final masterpiece was a cruel betrayal of the sanctity of my marriage. I packed their gift back into its box, taped it shut, and stared at the label. I would never send it back. Instead, it would sit in my closet as a reminder. I was done being the pawn in their twisted games. That night, I drafted a message brief, resolute, to my mother, father, brother, and ex-wife. "Don't contact me again. You chose this path. You made your bed. I won't lie in it." I pressed send and felt a momentary peace, as though I'd severed the last tether binding me to my old life. But deep down, I sensed the story wasn't over. Betrayal, this calculated demands, reckoning, and I was only beginning to understand how to seek it. When I sent that final, unambiguous message, "Don't contact me again. I'm done with this family, and I don't want anything to do with you. Stop harassing me, or I'll get a restraining order." I felt a pulse of relief, as if the last chain binding me to their drama snapped free. For a moment, I let myself believe peace was finally within reach. But it wasn't. A few days later, I found myself sitting in the sterile, echoing courtroom once more. My lawyer had meticulously organized every shred of evidence. Text logs of my mother's unannounced office visits, voicemails from my father, and that damning email thread between my brother and my ex-wife. When it was our turn, he laid it all out. My ex had no legal basis for additional alimony, and I wasn't responsible for a child that wasn't mine. He even highlighted how my family's harassment was an attempt to coerce me into writing a blank check not for love, but for guilt. The judge's gavel fell. Not only was I spared another cent, but my ex's existing alimony obligation was cut by 20%. In that moment, I felt vindicated. For the first time since the betrayal, I was not the victim, I was a winner. Outside the courthouse, I glimpsed my brother and ex storming away, faces contorted with rage and disbelief. My chest tightened, but I let the satisfaction wash over me. I had fought back and won against the people who once claimed to love me. For the next 2 weeks, I settled into a quiet routine. I poured myself into work, reconnecting with old friends, and rediscovered the simple joy of cooking dinner without glancing over my shoulder. I slept soundly, without those late-night, gut-twisting dreams of confrontations and phone calls. I even considered therapy something I had long dismissed, but I realized I needed more than legal closure. I needed to reclaim my sense of self, untainted by a family that had never truly seen me. Then, out of nowhere, an email from Aunt June appeared in my inbox. She was the one relative who had always hovered at the edges of our family's conflicts, never quite taking sides. Her message was polite but urgent. She felt compelled to reach out, to offer condolences for what I'd endured, and to urge me to consider mending fences. Part of me cringed. Why should I entertain yet another guilt trip? But another part, the part still hungry for genuine connection, read on. June confessed that she'd tried to intervene early on, quietly urging our parents to protect me. She knew I'd been sidelined all those years, and watching the affair unfold had broken her heart. Her words stung and soothed in equal measure. Could anyone in that family truly understand my pain? Perhaps June was different. But after everything, I wasn't sure I could. Wanted to risk another disappointment. I replied with measured courtesy, thanked her for her concern, but declined her invitation to talk. That was enough for me for now. 2 days later, I came home to find my brother standing on my doorstep, as if he'd never disappeared. His tone was contrite, almost brotherly. He'd made mistakes, he said, but he missed me, missed us. He fumbled an apology about the affair, claimed life had become a downward spiral since the birth of his son. He needed help, temporary financial relief, until he got back on his feet. I felt something like pity flicker in my chest, quickly doused by the cold truth. This was the same man who had stolen my wife, engineered my disgrace, and then called himself a victim. "I'm sorry," I said quietly, "but you and I are done. Your problems are yours alone," he pleaded, cajoled, threatened to expose more family secrets if I didn't help. I shut the door in his face. That should have been final. Instead, 2 days later, I walked into my office to find my mother pacing in the lobby, phone clutched to her ear, tears streaming. She launched into the familiar script. "We're family. Your brother is suffering. You're the only one who can help. Think of your nephew." Colleagues stared. My face burned. I realized then that no matter how many boundaries I erected, they would keep bulldozing them under the banner of family. I took her hand, calmly told her I loved her, but that I would no longer be drawn into their mess. When she accused me of heartlessness, I said, "Heartless is what I had to become to survive. Don't mistake self-preservation for cruelty." That afternoon, I blocked her number again. Word of the alimony case had leaked. Social media threads argued over who was right. Some hailed me as a modern hero, standing up for his rights. Others painted me as a cold villain, abandoning a baby. I watched the discourse from a distance, surprised at how quickly truth could blur under public opinion. Rather than engage, I drafted a personal blog post anonymously, under a pseudonym moonlighting the importance of consent, betrayal, and the cost of forgiveness. I framed it as a broader reflection on how families can harm us, and how sometimes the bravest path is self-protection. The post resonated, racking up thousands of reads overnight. For the first time, I felt a new purpose, not as a victim or villain in my own story, but as a witness offering insight to others tangled in similar dramas. Just when I thought I'd reached the end of this chapter, my phone rang again, this time from an unfamiliar number. On the other end was a pediatrician at the local children's hospital. My nephew, she said, had been diagnosed with a congenital heart condition. His prognosis was uncertain, and the medical bills were mounting. I froze. The baby, my brother's son, had nothing to do with me genetically, yet here was a small life teetering on the brink. I hung up and stared at the blank screen. All my anger, all my pain, pulsed through me at that moment. But beneath it ran something unexpected, a deep, aching empathy for an innocent child whose only crime was being born into a fractured family. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and made a decision. I would help, not because I owed my brother or my ex or my parents anything, but because I could not stand by while a child suffered. The next day, I transferred funds directly to the hospital's trust account, enough to cover the first 6 months of projected care. No notes, no announcements. I simply did what I felt was right. Later, I reached out to Aunt June, asking her to let the hospital know I was a guardian angel, someone who cared about that baby's life, and requesting she respect my anonymity. June agreed, sighing in relief that someone had finally stepped up. For the first time, I realized that family need not be defined by blood or betrayal. Family could be defined by the choices we make to protect the vulnerable, to act out of compassion, even when those closest to us have failed. I still haven't spoken to my brother, my ex, or my parents. Their names remain blocked on my phone. But when I walk down the street now, I hold my head a little higher. I know who I am, someone who values respect over obligation, compassion over resentment, and that, I have discovered, is the real story.